All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody to our amazing webinar for today. My name is Jordan Lederman. I am the sales director of a beautiful new boutique building that we are putting up in Fort Lauderdale area, right on the water. It's called 160 Marina Bay. I am the sales director for the project, and we will be sponsoring the webinar for today. We have an amazing topic. We are going to be talking about a very popular conversation these days, which is individuals and businesses that are moving to Florida and what kind of tax benefits you get by doing so. We're also going to talk about how to establish residency in Florida, which is extremely important. And to do so, we have two of the top experts in the industry. We have Taryn Goldstein. She's a tax attorney with BDO. She's the managing director of the state and local tax for the entire state of Florida. I think they have around 9 offices throughout the state. And then we have Teig Lawrence as well. Teig is a tax attorney for over 25 years. He's also within the development team, co-developer of 160 Marina Bay, the beautiful project. So I want to thank you both for being here. And I want to thank everybody for joining. We know we have a lot of people from out of state. And again, thank you for being here. First, I want to talk about why we created this webinar. So we're selling this boutique building in Fort Lauderdale, and we just launched a few weeks ago. We have so many interested buyers talking to us, and a lot of the conversation evolves around them moving to Florida for not only tax reasons, but the quality of life. So that's why we decided to put together this webinar with two of the top experts to explain more of the tax benefits that come along with moving to Florida for yourself and your business. And then also, how do you exactly establish residency in Florida? Whether it's you or if you're a broker joining us, this is something that you can explain to your clients and pass along information as well to Taryn and Teig. But with that being said, let's get started. I want to talk about this whole popular topic. Yesterday, there was a webinar put on by BizNow. It was fascinating. They had the top industry experts. I was really talking mostly about Fort Lauderdale, but in Florida in general. Top developers, top people in the area, and they were all explaining this migration down to Florida from people out of state. It's a really great thing, especially for the Tri-County area, Miami, Broward County, and Palm Beach County. This one particularly focused within Fort Lauderdale. But a couple slogans, the president of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, he gave some quotes or some slogans that they use that really resonated with me and kind of summed up this thing that's going on now. The first one was work in the cloud, live in the sun. And this really sums up what's going on right now. With COVID and in a post-COVID world, it was really a catalyst for offices and the work from home culture. So working in the cloud, working remotely, but living in the sun is really what's going on right now. A lot of people are moving to Florida. They're realizing our quality of life with the beaches and the palm trees and the tax savings is really beneficial. Another slogan they go by is life less taxing, which is also amazing. It really tells you that you are not only saving less taxes, but life is less taxing when you move to the Sunshine State. Again, you don't have to wear a jacket 365 days a year. So that's really what's going on right now. And that's why we are putting on this webinar. Before we get into the tax savings and establishing residency, I do want to present 160 Marina Bay for a few minutes. Again, we're sponsoring the webinar as a boutique building since we just launched. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. So 160 Marina Bay is a boutique building with only 16 units. We're right in the heart of Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale is a really booming city that's already established. It's very central in the Tri-County area. It's the largest city in Fort Lauderdale, largest city in Broward County, and it's a very sophisticated city. Our project's gonna have massive 3,000 square foot units, very, very luxurious and super high tech. We also have a private 14 boat slip marina in the back. For anybody that knows Fort Lauderdale, it's extremely friendly to boaters. Boaters love this area. Here's an image just showing the beautiful beaches and the proximity within the beach of 160 Marina Bay. Fort Lauderdale has some of the nicest beaches in Florida, white sand, turquoise water, miles and miles of coastline. And again, it's very popular for boaters. It's known as the yachting capital of the world, since we have more registered yachts here than anywhere else. We also have the largest boat show in the world, the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show, which takes place once a year. We have the largest cruise port in the world. So we have a ton of canals, and boaters love this. You pull up to restaurants on the canals. It's actually called the Venice of America. There's also a really thriving downtown area right off Las Olas. You have a financial district. You have tons of bars and restaurants and art galleries and shopping. So it's a perfect mix of beach living and then also city living. 160 Marina Bay, our project, is actually located on Isle of Venice Drive, and it's extremely central. You're 1.4 miles to the heart of the beach, and then you're less than a mile to everything on Las Olas. So if you're a buyer, or if you are thinking of moving to Fort Lauderdale, but you can't decide if you want a beach condo or a city condo, this is a perfect blend of both worlds. We're also located at the very far end of Isle of Venice, so you have a lot less traffic. It's an easier boat ride. You can take your boat right out through the canal, no fixed bridges, right to the middle of the ocean, 10 to 15 minutes. You want to go to Bimini, the Bahamas, it's about a 2-hour boat ride. So it's a great location. Here's a perfect aerial view of where our project's located. Again, a super quick ride to the Atlantic, 1.4 miles to the beach, and less than a mile to everything on Las Olas, which really starts about right here. Also, Fort Lauderdale is a city that's extremely centrally located. You have Miami to the south, which is about a 35-minute drive. To the north, you have Boca, Delray, Palm Beach, again, about 30 minutes, 35 minutes. You also have the Bright Line, which is something extremely, it's really amazing for the Tri-County area. This is the new train system. I think it's shut down now because of COVID, but it connects Miami to Fort Lauderdale in about 28, 30 minutes, Fort Lauderdale to Boca or West Palm in another 28 to 30 minutes. And then you can get to Orlando eventually. It'll connect to Orlando in about 2.5 hours. Our project's about 8 minutes to the station, and then it's about a 30-minute ride to downtown Miami. So if you want to go to a Heat game or an event in downtown Miami, it's very easy to do so. Our project will have a beautiful pool right on the private marina, lounge chairs, cabanas, and a barbecue area. From every unit, you're going to have beautiful views of the marina and of the canal. The technology in this entire project is going to be the most state-of-the-art you can find. You'll have 5 touch panels throughout the property. From that touch panel or from an app on your phone, you can open the front door, adjust your temperature, adjust the lighting, open the shades. You can even tell your master bathroom shower head to turn on in case you don't like getting into cold showers. So very state-of-the-art. Our kitchens are all going to be chef-inspired U-shaped with a 10-foot island, and the bathrooms are really going to feel like you're in a spa. Our developer, along with our amazing designer and architect, really did a top-notch job. No corners were cut in this property. It's going to be a very super luxurious feel. Here you can see one of our corner units, almost 3,000 square feet, huge wraparound terrace with massive windows everywhere, 10-foot ceilings. Our floors are imported direct from Italy. It's a big tile porcelain floor with white veining. So again, very luxurious feel. Every unit's going to come with an amazing wet bar in the dining area. This is a sub-zero fridge. All the finishes are matte black for a more sophisticated feel. And then you can see from every unit, you're going to have water views and terrace access from the living room and the master bedroom. Again, our kitchens are chef-inspired. You have hidden refrigerator, hidden dishwasher, 2-tone cabinets. These are also imported direct from Italy. Even little things like linear diffusers for the AC vents and 4-inch hi-hat lights. Everything put into this unit was put into it very strategically for that ultra luxurious feel that you're going to get. Terraces. In the time of COVID, the reason the developer designed these units the way they did, very large 3,000 square foot units, is because during these times, a lot of people are spending more time within their unit, especially working from home. So the interior having that home feeling as opposed to a cookie cutter condo unit was something extremely important, as well as the exterior space. You're in your unit, you want to spend more time outside. So we didn't create small balconies. We really did large terraces where you can fit a couch or a dining table. And of course, you have your beautiful views of the canal and the multi-million-dollar houses across the street from the canal. The designer of our building and the architect, very experienced, and they do amazing things. It's a very modern look, yet extremely sophisticated and elegant at the same time. And then from the west side of the units, you will get your beautiful sunsets. So our prices for the project are going to be about 2.2 million to 2.5 million. We only have 16 of them, several which have already been sold. The boat slips are going to be a little bit extra, and we expect to be complete in about 14 months. So it's a boutique building, only 14 months away. We are cooperating. If you have brokers, if you do have referrals in New York, send them our way. It's a perfect project, and we're excited to share it. With that being said, I do want to turn it over to Taryn. Again, Taryn is the Managing Director for State and Local Tax of the state of Florida on behalf of BDO. She's going to tell you all the insights of the tax savings that you get by moving to Florida. So Taryn, I really appreciate you being here, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jordan. I am sharing my screen. Hopefully everybody can see it. I will restart my video.
Yep, we can see your screen, Taryn.
Okay, we got the full screen. All right, as Jordan said, I am Taryn Goldstein. I am the state and local leader for Florida for BDO. We are an international accounting firm. We recently actually merged with a large Florida firm, MBAF. Very happy to have them on board. So we've expanded our footprint even further in Florida. Teig had reached out to me actually not all that long ago, last week, to talk to you guys a little bit about what it takes to move from outside of Florida to Florida, the tax benefits associated with it. And especially in this time of COVID, we have people moving around all the time without changing their residencies. So after I go through some of the tax benefits, I'll turn it over to Teig, who will walk through what do you really have to do to become a Florida resident, because states that do impose an income tax aren't letting go all that easily, especially during this time of COVID. So just bear with me 1 minute while I get my screen to start moving again.
Taryn, why do you do that? I just want to.
I got it. Go ahead, Jordan.
And tell anybody attending, if you do have any questions on the material, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So feel free to type in your questions. We may answer them throughout the presentation, or we're going to save some time at the end as well. So at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A. Feel free to type or ask any questions that you have. Thanks, Taryn.
Okay, so we have just a short agenda. Like I said, we're going to walk through what the tax savings are when you move. First, your business, and then we're going to focus on yourself. What do you do as an individual? What do you get out of moving here as an individual to Florida? We'll focus on some of the larger states and higher taxed areas. The Northeast, we know we have a lot of people from New York on the presentation. We're getting quite a few people from California that are moving to the state, although we have somewhat similar weather patterns in certain parts of the state. It is much more cost effective from an individual and corporate perspective to live here in Florida than it would be in California. And then, we have our brethren up in Chicago. Nothing to be said about the weather up there. You've got a month of good weather, and then you can spend the other 11 down here where we enjoy it. We have quite a few friends up there in Chicago right now that I think are actually listening, so I hope they're keeping warm. So starting with your businesses, right? You corporations, the first thing to notice is that most corporate tax rates are much higher than ours. Right now, we have a 4.458% rate. It will go back up to 5.5% next year. Still lower than most corporations. I think the more important thing, because I don't want to get into the real nitty gritty of taxes, but the thing to really remember is that if you're a business owner living here in Florida, you can actually eliminate not only that corporate tax, but you can eliminate your individual tax by using a pass-through entity. Partnerships, LLCs, S corporations, where when individuals own those types of entities up north, you're going to get taxed. You live down here in Florida, that tax goes away altogether. We'll show you a few slides that will walk through those differences. So on this particular slide, again, this is based for the corporations. Just gives you an idea if you are a corporation, the difference in the tax rates between some of those higher tax states, like I mentioned, California. The graph really shows you nicely on the bottom the magnitude of the tax in California and New York. If you look at the green bars, that's the difference between what you would pay up in those states versus here in Florida. Just perfectly based on the that corporate tax rate of 4.458 versus an 8.5 or even 15 if you're in New York City itself. So I'm going to move on to what's in it for the individuals, because that's what we're really focused on here today, right? People moving down. The business kind of comes with it, but you start with the people. Some of the most important things that you'll find here in Florida, first and foremost, if you haven't already heard it, we don't pay personal income tax here in the state. So right off the bat, you're going to eliminate one entire tranche of taxes that you're paying. There's also certain states, especially in the Northeast, that charge a state capital gains rate. So if you're selling properties, if you're selling businesses, you actually have a secondary tax in the state as an individual that you get charged at that capital gains rate. There's a federal rate and the state rate. We don't have that here in Florida. There's no estate tax here in Florida either. So if you do everything properly that Teig walks through in a few minutes, even for your estate planning, you won't have any state imposed estate taxes. All right, it's kind of a mouthful. And then also our real estate taxes tend to be a bit lower as well. And we have something called a homestead. Not familiar with homestead. Basically means that you move down here as long as you create a primary residence. So you buy into 160 Marina Bay, you'll end up as a primary residence. You apply for your homestead, and the state can only increase your property taxes by a marginal amount every year. Not like some other states where if they decide to come in and reassess the entire area, your property taxes could go up at any time. So it's a little bit of a different way that we look at property taxes here. For those brokers out there, you probably are used to telling your clients, when you buy a home, expect to have 2 to 2.5% of the purchase price to be your real estate, your property taxes, your annual property taxes. If you make it your primary residence, you can lock in that number for the most part. Small increases each year, but nothing substantial. So let's take a look at the personal income taxes. So the top statistics you'll see are if you're married and filing jointly, the bottom are single. I want to make sure that we try to cover as many people as we can to get an idea. So the graphs over on the right kind of speak for themselves. If you look at Florida on the left-hand side of each one of the graphs, it's flat. As I said before, you're not going to pay income tax here in Florida. Any other state, you're at least paying something. You can see the differences based on the brackets. The higher your income, obviously, the higher the taxes are going to be. So, when you're looking at a price point, a married filing jointly of $1 million of taxable income, you're not going to pay anything on that here in Florida, where in New York, you're starting out with $100,000 in tax right away, not including your federal income tax. This is simply state taxes. So you can see that from both the married filing jointly and the single, it doesn't change. This isn't a sliding scale. We are not allowed to impose an income tax here. One of the only other states like that is Texas, and I'm not going to get into the war with Texas. I will just tell you that Florida's been much warmer lately, so I would stick with Florida if I were you guys. So this is the capital gains rate that I spoke about before. So again, if you're somebody who's buying and selling properties, buying and selling investments, if you have capital gains rates or capital gains taxes, there's certain states, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, they all charge a secondary tax, a state level tax on your capital gains. So it's another level of tax that gets eliminated if you move yourself down here properly and far enough ahead of making any sort of sale that would be considered a capital gains sale. Again, these are things I could get into the deeper details of what a capital gain is, but if anybody's interested in that, please reach out to me later. I'm happy to talk through it more, but just want to kind of highlight the benefits for purpose of this presentation. So as we said before, state taxes also, out of the 6 states that we're comparing, 4 of them impose an estate tax, which means even after you pass away, you're going to keep paying the state more taxes. If you move everything down here well ahead of, hopefully, cross fingers, of passing away, your estate can be set up appropriately that you can avoid those estate taxes. So again, sliding scale, but if you look at Florida, California, and New Jersey, you've got zeros across the board. Doesn't matter how much your estate is worth, you're not going to be charged a tax. And then we get to property taxes. So property taxes, as I mentioned before, a little bit different. The way that property taxes are imposed in certain states are different. Here in particular, we have the homestead. Again, the homestead meaning that when you establish a permanent residence, and this is your primary residence, which is what Teig will be talking about, how we do that from a legal perspective. How do you really move yourself? You can apply for a homestead rebate, which basically just says that you've got protection so that the state cannot increase your state taxes, your property taxes, any more than a certain percentage.
So just to add to that, Lauren, it's such an important thing that everyone understands is when you file that homestead exemption, it really caps the state's ability to increase you year over year.
That's right.
So when you own a property for 10 or 20 years, you might be getting taxed on $1 million of value, where your neighbor who has the very same unit as you, who paid $3 million for it, is all of a sudden paying tax on $3 million of value. So there's a really important benefit to filing that homestead exemption when you get to Florida. I'm
Exactly.
sorry, Taryn, go ahead.
No, that's a great point, Teig. It's something that people have to be very aware of when they move down here. There's a strict deadline for filing the homestead exemption. You need to make sure you file it timely. It does have to be on your primary residence. If you haven't properly moved yourself down here, you can lose that exemption. And I've actually had to defend audits where people have not properly moved themselves, especially out of New York, where they keep their Manhattan apartment and they haven't changed their license and they have a car up there. And again, I'm stealing your thunder, Teig. I'll let you go through it, but those are the kinds of things that we run into.
No, it's the story is always the best part.
I mean, I tell you, I was telling you yesterday when I'm somebody who moved down here and I didn't do it right in the very beginning. And it was a little startling to find out. For example, New Jersey, benefit in New Jersey, they don't charge sales tax on the lease on a car. But when I was trying to do the right things and I retitled my car down here and kept my lease, all of a sudden my lease payments went up. And I said, wait a second, what's going on? Well, Florida imposes sales tax on your lease payment. So just be aware of that. If you're leasing a car and you bring it down, your lease payment's going up. Nothing you can do about it. As soon as you retitle it, the leasing company is going to increase it. But it's really, really important that you take these steps to make sure that whatever property you buy down here, if your intent is to become a resident, and you have to be a resident to really benefit from all of these taxes that I just walked through. If this is not your primary residence, you're not eligible for these taxes. I mean, regardless of political affiliation, you can look at President Trump and did he do it right? Did he do it wrong? There's things on both sides of that argument. So listen to Teig as he's going through. Those are the important things. I can always give you more information on the taxes and how much you're going to save and run calculations for you. But if you don't do what Teig's about to walk through, none of it's going to mean anything. So at that, I think, Teig, that was my last slide, and I'm turning it over to you.
Well, Taryn, thank you so much. On behalf of myself and my partners in the 160 Marina Bay project, I really appreciate you coming on. I am not a state and local expert. I'm a federal guy. I deal with international noncompliance and those sorts of issues. So to have you here today is really great. If anyone out there has a client and they're thinking of moving to Florida and they want to move their business to Florida, by all means, call Taryn. She's an expert. Her number is 561-207-3208. And again, I just really want to thank you for, we're not trying to make anyone an expert out there in taxes right now. But what we do want you to recognize is that there are huge benefits to being in Florida. And, if you have someone, make sure that you get an attorney involved and hopefully it's Taryn or you can call myself. But with that, Taryn, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Teig. I appreciate the invite. I was happy to be here.
Right. So now, before I get started on my section, I really wanted to, talk for a minute about our project. And it's just such an exciting time for the city of Fort Lauderdale, with all the people moving down here from the Northeast and from elsewhere. There's so much going on, and it's all good. And as Jordan was saying at the beginning, we were in a Biz Now presentation, and just to hear the enthusiasm from the mayor of Fort Lauderdale and all the other developers that were participated in that presentation, it's just really amazing. It's such an amazing time, and it's a great opportunity for all the agents there. The market is hot as can be. It's just a really great time. And for me, I'm excited about this project. And a quick story about how this started. I know everyone's from New York and you like to go fast, but I'm going to do my best. So I grew up in South Florida, and I was finishing my tax program at the University of Miami, and I was recruited to go out and work for Deloitte & Touche in Los Angeles. So I was 27 years old. I move out to Los Angeles, and I wake up one day. I realize that I just spent 3 years of my life commuting from Santa Monica to downtown Los Angeles, 2 hours in the car every day for a job that I didn't even really love. And I just knew that I had to get back to Florida. I wanted to get back. I wanted to set up my own law firm and just give it a go. I moved to Fort Lauderdale because I'd gone to law school at Nova Southeastern. And one of the first things I did is I just found this great little condo on Isle of Venice. It was 160 Isle of Venice, and which is now our development site. You could kind of do the math and figure out what happened. But so I moved back from spending 3 years in LA, and I'm living in this little condo on Isle of Venice in Fort Lauderdale, and it just doesn't get any better. You really have to live there on the island to truly understand the lifestyle. I set up my office at 350 East Las Olas. You leave the island, you hang a right, you're 2 minutes away from the Las Olas shopping district. You make a left, you're 2 minutes away from Fort Lauderdale Beach. If you've got a boat, you hop in your boat and you're off, to wherever. or even the Atlantic Ocean or even Bimini in a matter of hours. So it's just such a unique place. I've lived in Los Angeles, New York City, West Palm, Miami, and for quality of life purposes, there is no place that I would say is better than Fort Lauderdale. It's just a beautiful city, and there's so much going on there that for anyone that's considering moving down, it's just a no-brainer. Anyway, I don't want to speak too much. I know Jordan pointed out, how great our units are, about 3,000 square feet, and we have scrutinized every detail, from the private elevators to the private marina. We tried to make everything as good as it could be. We have the best architect, we have the best designers. We have a tremendous amount of development experience and financial wherewithal with our group. It's a very strong group, and everyone should feel great about this project. Hopefully everyone likes it as much as we do. In any event, I'm going to start with just getting back on point, that as Taryn was saying, why is it so important to establish residency? Well, for Florida purposes, it's great. All right, it's easy. There's a no-brainer. Florida wants you here. Florida's not going to be the group that gives you a hard time. The party that you have to watch out for is the taxing authority from the state that you're leaving, because those people or the taxing authorities in the Northeast, they're losing their revenue right now. What's great for Florida is terrible for the Northeast, California, and all these other states that are high tax jurisdictions, because they're losing the revenue, and they're trying to create new taxes to make up for their loss of revenue. So I don't know how this ends well for the states up in the Northeast or for other parts of the country, but that's not our problem. We're happy to have all the people that want to move down here, and we'd really love it if some of those people would buy one of the units. But let's get to establishing residency in Florida. Taryn, if you could you put up the screen for me on establishing residency, the legal steps, so that everyone could see it? Right. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, very, very obvious things. You want to get a Florida driver's license. You want to trade your old license in, get the Florida license, change your voter registration, change your car registration, and you want to update all of your estate plan and all of your important documents to reflect the fact that you are now a Florida resident and you are now residing in Florida. You want to eliminate as much doubt as possible as to, your residency. And it's also important that you're actually in the state for more than 183 days, because what's going to happen? The states, there's case law out there. Some of the states they're looking at your gym memberships. They're looking at, hey, fine, you say you're a Florida resident, but we see that you're going to the gym every day in Los Angeles, or we see that you're going to the gym every day because everything you do creates a digital footprint now. So just merely establishing documentation isn't going to be sufficient for a really aggressive tax authority. And some of the more aggressive tax authorities out there, California is very, very aggressive. New York is very aggressive. If you say that you're establishing residency in Florida, you better be able to withstand inspection. And, the documents, they're going to go beyond the basics. They're not just going to look at your driver's license. Hey, you changed your driver's license. Great. You established your voter registration in Florida. You changed your bank accounts or what have you. They're really going to peel back the onion, and they're going to say, okay, well, hey, kind of weird. You say you're in Florida, but you're working out at the gym every day in New Jersey. You know, it's just not going to fly well. There's so many different ways for the tax authorities now to sort of do a back end audit to see where you're really living. So some of the things that, you know, you're going to want to do also is, are you going to be maintaining a residence in the state that you left? If you are, that might create a problem for you. You know, it's not the end all be all, it's not definitive, but you really want to make sure that if you're moving down here, that, you know, what are you doing with your old residency? The number one thing, you don't want to maintain any sort of homestead exemption or primary residence exemption in the other state. You can only have one primary residence. If you say your primary residence in Florida is Florida, then it better be in Florida. You know, and if you were holding on to a property in another state, then what becomes interesting is, okay, what are you doing with that property? Are you leasing it out? If you're leasing it out, then obviously you're not using it. And that's probably, you know, going to be okay because, you know, it's becomes more or less an investment property for you. But to the extent that, you know, you still have that property, then, you know, how many days are you spending in that state versus the state of Florida? All these things become very, very important. And
I would add in there
yeah,
that especially New York, like I said before, we've defended these audits. It happens quite often. New York watches those residents. They watch especially people in the financial sector. And as COVID has caused people to move around and work remotely more, they're looking to see how much time did you spend in that Manhattan apartment? How much time did you spend out on Long Island? You know, how many days? They've gone right down to cell phone records to find out where was the cell phone call placed from. They're not messing around. New York does not like to let go of the money that's earned there.
it's important because a lot of times people think that, well, you know, I've set up my documentation. It looks like I'm in Florida. Well, you know what? The world is different now. Everything you do creates a digital footprint. So the tax authorities, they know how to grab that digital footprint. And, you know, you don't want to be the person that is making all these representations and, you know, saying under penalties of perjury or whatever, yes, you know, you're talking to the auditor or the examiner, yes, I'm Florida, and they find out otherwise, you know, you could have a whole nother set of problems. So you really have to be careful. So what we're trying to do today is, you know, again, we're not trying to make you tax experts. We just want you to understand that, you know, if you're going to say that Florida is your residence, make it your residence. And, you know, there will always be the person out there that is trying to game the system, and it's just not worth it. So all the things that you want to do, I'm sorry, Jordan, go ahead.
We have a good question that kind of relates to what you were just talking about. So let me just chime in with the question from one of the attendees. Do both spouses need to change residency?
Taryn?
Teig, you want me to take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Generally, yes. They will be looking, unless you're legally separated, they're going to be looking for both spouses to be down here. There's obviously arguments that if one spouse is still working in New York and living down here, that the primary residence is still down here. It depends on how you title the house. So you're getting into some nuances there. But the baseline answer is yes. If you're married without a legal separation, then you're going to want to have both spouses transfer their residence and follow all of these rules that Teig's talking through to establish residency down here.
Right. So again, all the different things or daily aspects or the daily parts of your life, they should just really add up to the fact that you're a Florida resident. Where are your doctors located?
Right.
Where, you know, what is your religious place of worship? You know, your
It comes down to, honestly, the one of the first lines in the statute reads, residency is an intent.
right.
All of these other things are the facts and circumstances that demonstrate the intent to create a residency down here. You can go all the way down to, and I think Teig gets on one of the slides, to filing your affidavit of residency and saying there's actually a document that says, I am swearing on the Holy Bible or whatever book of worship you have, on the penalties of perjury, this is my home residence. But if the facts don't line up, that affidavit still isn't going to hold up.
It's exactly right. And the great thing about Fort Lauderdale, what I noticed, Taryn, is that I was just poking around at their Homestead exemption site a few days ago, and they make everything very easy. They have a link to the voter registration site so that you can change your voter registration. They have a link to the DMV, and they have the declaration of domicile for Broward County. So you can complete all of these documents, and you really should do it. It's just so important. Again, it's not about Florida. It's really about the state that you're leaving. I mean, Florida, it's good to do all these things for the state of Florida, but you're really doing it to protect yourself and insulate yourself from that examination that you may be subject to on the back end after you leave. So we'd like to open it up for questions. If anyone has questions.
Actually, we do have a few questions. I'll kind of read them off. Well, first of all, everyone's asking if this information can be emailed to everybody. So we are going to send out a copy of this webinar probably by end of day Monday. So you'll get a copy of it, and you can go through all the information as well. Another question came in, and Taryn, I believe you answered it separately, but who is the best type of person to contact for these issues? Are they CPAs or attorneys that are better for these things?
It's really either one. I'm an attorney working for a public accounting firm, so technically I don't practice law, but people who practice in my space, the state and local space, all of us down here in Florida know how to change a residency, the legal ramifications that go along with it. We work hand in hand with practicing attorneys like Teig that would help people understand what they need to get done. Your estate planning professionals should know how to do it. And again, estate planning professionals tend to be both CPAs and attorneys working together, because the attorneys can draft the documents, the CPAs can actually execute on them and file the returns. This is really no different when you're making this change. One of the differences that I've seen down here, just from an experiential perspective, you're not required to have an attorney to do a real estate closing down here, whereas you are up in most northeastern states. So it's something to keep in mind, that when you're coming down here, just because you're not required to have that attorney doesn't mean it's not the appropriate thing to do. You're better off hiring an attorney to help you close, or working with your real estate. I know a lot of the audience is brokers, working with the brokers and their attorneys to make sure that they guide you to the right people to help you do this residency change.
Gotcha.
Right. So on that note, I'm going to shamelessly plug my wife, who happens to be a real estate transactional attorney, and she's excellent at what she does, and she also has a title company. So it's a family business. What can I say?
Yeah, T, we should talk more. My husband was up in the Northeast, in New Jersey. He sold his residential real estate practice as an attorney and moved down here. So.
All right. So yeah, we have a lot of things going on. I really appreciate having Taryn here to get back to that other question about whether a CPA or an attorney should be involved in helping someone from out of state. In my opinion, it should really be a state and local expert like Taryn, who's more than a CPA. She doesn't have to be a practicing attorney, but it's perfect, because I think the attorneys have a little bit different mindset when it comes to making arguments and it comes to substantiating positions and things like that. So from my perspective, I would rather see someone contact Taryn than just their CPA. I think you know, when you do something, you want to do it right, and you want to make sure that you have the right tool for the job. Every job has, in my opinion, there's a right tool for every job, and if you're picking the wrong tool, you know, sometimes you don't end up with the best result. So I would encourage anyone with a client again to contact Taryn especially if they're relocating their business.
Perfect. We have another question. I think this one's directed to Taryn. Can portability be an advantage over these other states?
So portability is an interesting question, and this is one that I had answered directly, I think, but portability really works for intrastate sales. You've already established a homestead in Florida. So it's really, I'll use my in-laws as an example. They moved down here 30 years ago, bought their condo, you know, kind of like Teig did at a very low price, right? You end up establishing that homestead. And then you've got many snowbirds that have done this. They've lived here for 30 years and they find their condo's worth a lot more money. They want to sell it and they want to quote unquote downsize, move west. But because of the real estate boom, downsizing could actually cost them more in taxes. So that's where portability came in, was really for those senior citizens and people who had lived here longer to take that with them so they didn't get hurt trying to downsize. That doesn't really translate that much when you're thinking about moving from a New York, New Jersey, California to here, because that's going to be your initial purchase here. It still does, you know, act in the same way that in those other states you can be reassessed at any point, whereas down here you could not.
I think the portability right now, you know, and I hadn't thought of this before the presentation today, but the portability with the, you know, the way property values are increasing in South Florida right now, the portability is going to be huge for the people that you know have owned their property for a period of time. It basically allows for an easier move. You don't have to necessarily pay full freight on the house that you move into, because you carry that tax savings over to the next residence. And you know, you may pay incrementally a little bit more, but you're still going to shield a lot of the value that you would normally pay tax on. So I think with a hot market, the portability right now for the Florida residents is really a great thing.
Right. I agree, but yeah, the key being there though that's already Florida residents, right?
Right. You're already here. You've already owned a property for a few years, and what it is, just to give a quick explanation, because people may not understand portability, is you filed for a homestead. Let's say you owned your property, you bought your property 10 years ago, and you paid $100,000 for it, and now it's worth $1 million, right? And you want to buy a new residence somewhere else. Well, you've had right now, even though your property is probably worth $1 million, if you went to sell it, you're only paying tax on maybe $150,000 of value, because you paid $100,000 for the property, and then it's increased a little bit, just a little bit, because of their Save Our Homes value over the years. And so you're only paying tax on like $150,000, but your property's worth, you know, $1 million. Now you want to sell your house and you want to move somewhere else. You can protect a big piece of that gain and move it over so that you're not paying property taxes on that on a big piece of that gain that you had. And it's just another way or another reason why Florida is such a great state to live in from a tax perspective.
Gotcha. Guys, we have not so much time left, and there's a lot of questions coming in. There's a lot of specific questions. So for that reason, we just put up on the screen, on Taryn's screen, basically all of our contact info. You have Taryn's, you have Teig's, you want to learn more about the project, you have my information. We'll answer a few more questions, but because there are a lot of specific scenarios that people are asking, definitely feel free to reach out to Taryn and Teig for those. Let's take one more general question. Can somebody buy a Florida property into a New York trust, or does it need to move the trust agreement from New York to Florida in advance?
That actually is that actually is not a very general question. There's a lot of estate planning nuances that go along with that. And that's where I would say I'm going to punt on this one a little bit. I work with my colleagues on the estate planning side that work with high wealth individuals that do all estate planning. We work together to figure out the ordering of these events in order to move things down. So it's going to depend on the type of property, what kind of trust is it? Is it a decanting trust, a non-grantor trust, a grantor trust? So enough said that there's a lot of nuances that go along with it. The person that posed that question, if you'd like to talk through it more, I'm happy to get on a call and bring in the right experts to talk you through how you would want to do that. I would, Jordan, there is one that I thought was a little bit more generic. That it sounds longer, but I can go ahead and take a shot at this one. Somebody was asking a question about selling real estate in Florida and New York. I think the indication was that they're in New York for 4 months of the year. They're down here for 8 months of the year. Can they claim Florida residency? Generally, yes. You're here for more than 183 days, but again, to all of the things that Teig was walking through and all of the facts and circumstances have to line up. New York will still call you a non-resident. You will still need to file a return in New York because you've gone back to New York and you've done business there and you've earned income there. So you're not going to get away from New York taxes altogether. But if you sell something in Florida and that part of your business down here in Florida, then you won't pay tax on that as long as you're set up as a pass-through entity, not a corporation. So general answer is yes, you can get your residency down here, but you need to think through all the nuances of how it works and understand you're not going to escape New York taxes in that type of situation altogether.
Gotcha.
I saw one more really important question, and it was, what is my wife's name and telephone number? So for those who are looking to find a real estate transactional attorney in Florida, her name is Randy Lawrence. She practices under Randy Krongold. Her phone number is 303. She's laughing right now because that's a big joke with us. She's great. Her telephone number is 305-613-0111. She has a title company and she does real estate closings all over the state of Florida. And she just closed about 600 units in Midtown, so she really knows what she's doing. In any event, I think that we're short on time, guys. Jordan, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, Devin. So everybody, again, because tax law, it's very confusing. You do have everyone's contact info, including mine if you are interested in the project. And we just wanted to thank Taryn and Teig. Thank you guys very much for joining today, giving us your real thoughtful insight. So what did we learn today? We learned two things: move to Florida, buy a property at 160 Marina Bay. And again, any questions, you have our contact info. So thank you all for joining. We really appreciate your time, and it was a true pleasure.